Let's talk about Queen Victoria. When she came to power in 1837, the British monarchy was, frankly, a total disaster. It was on the verge of collapsing entirely. So, how on earth did this one teenager manage to rescue a broken institution and turn it into the powerful symbol we recognize today?
And yeah, a disaster is putting it lightly. The monarchy she inherited was basically a dumpster fire. Her uncles, guys like George IV, were notorious for their wild spending, their massive debts, and their very, very public scandals. The crown wasn't just unpopular. A lot of people saw it as this corrupt, decaying relic, and its future was anything but guaranteed.
So you'd think they'd need some political genius to fix this, right? Well, the person who got the job was, by all accounts, a complete long shot. A whole series of family tragedies and what was basically a succession crisis unexpectedly cleared the path for this highly unlikely queen.
I mean, you really couldn't make this up. Her journey to the throne was just improbable. Victoria was born way down the list, fifth in line. But then the main heir died suddenly, kicking off this frantic royal baby race. Then, boom, 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 in quick succession, her own father, her grandfather, and a couple of her uncles all died without any other legitimate heirs. One by one, the people standing between her and the crown just vanished.
So, picture this. You're 18 years old, just barely an adult. You get woken up in the middle of the night and someone tells you, by the way, you are queen now. Just wow. She was young, she'd had this incredibly sheltered and lonely childhood, and she knew next to nothing about politics. Right away, she leaned heavily on her prime minister, Lord Melbourne. He became more than just an advisor. He was really the father figure she'd never had.
Now, Melbourne was a huge help for sure, but the real game changer, the relationship that would define everything, was about to begin. Because the key to reinventing the monarchy wasn't just Victoria, it was Victoria and Albert.
Okay, so what they did was basically a massive rebrand of the entire royal family. They looked at the old way of doing things, all the crazy spending, the scandals, the political meddling, and said, nope, we're done with that. They created a whole new model, one built on the values of the growing middle class. You know, family, morality, duty. The idea was for the monarch to become a symbol, standing above all the messy politics.
And you have to understand, this wasn't just some political power couple. This was a real, passionate love story. I mean, just listen to what she wrote in her diary on their wedding night. That genuine affection, that deep personal connection, that was the secret sauce. It was the engine that powered the whole transformation of the monarchy. And Albert wasn't just standing in the background, smiling and waving. No way. He was basically the chief operating officer of the monarchy. He jumped in, sorted out the disastrous royal finances. He championed British industry with the amazing Great Exhibition. And most importantly, he was the architect of their public image as this perfect, devoted family, an image the public absolutely loved. They were this incredible team, this powerhouse couple that had literally saved the monarchy. And then, tragedy struck. In 1861, the partnership that had fixed everything was shattered, and it plunged both Victoria and the crown into a deep, deep crisis. Albert died, just like that, typhoid fever, and he was only 42 years old. For Victoria, it was the end of the world. She was completely devastated, writing that her life as a happy person was just over and gone. She even tragically blamed the stress of her son's recent bad behavior, claiming Albert had been killed by that dreadful business.
And her grief wasn't just a private thing. It was total. She completely withdrew from public life, basically becoming a hermit. She wore black for the next 40 years, for the rest of her life. This is where she gets that famous nickname, the Widow of Windsor, because she just disappeared. And her absence created a really dangerous power vacuum.
With a queen that no one ever saw, people started to wonder, hey, what are we paying for exactly? And you can see it right here on this chart. Support for getting rid of the monarchy, which had been pretty low, suddenly spiked in the early 1870s. Things got pretty serious. Until our clever Prime Minister, Benjamin Disraeli, managed to gently coax her back into the public eye. And the moment she re-emerged, boom, support for the crown snapped right back. But here's the thing. When she came back, she wasn't the same person. She didn't just return to her old role. She re-emerged as something bigger. She became the powerful, living symbol of a global empire at its absolute peak. It's honestly hard to even wrap your head around the scale of her reign at this point. Think about it. A quarter of the entire planet, 1 out of every 4 human beings on Earth, was in theory her subject. The British Empire was so vast they had that famous saying, the sun never sets on it. and she was the matriarchal face of it all.
And then her Prime Minister Disraeli had another brilliant political idea. He had Parliament grant her a brand new title, Empress of India. Now, this wasn't just for show. It was a powerful political move to personally link her to the jewel in the crown of the British Empire, cementing her status as its ultimate ruler.
And her influence spread through her family, too. I mean, she had 9 children, and she married them off to royals all over the continent. Seriously, just look at this list. Her grandkids ended up on the thrones of Germany, Russia, Spain, you name it. It's why they called her the grandmother of Europe. She had woven this incredible web of family ties that stretched across the world.
So, after all that, what are we left with? What's her legacy? Well, it's incredibly complex because Victoria herself was just full of fascinating contradictions.
Okay, so on one hand, you have this woman who, in an era completely run by men, was arguably the most powerful person on the planet. For over 63 years, her name literally defined an age. And yet, she thought the idea of other women getting the right to vote was, and I'm quoting here, a mad, wicked folly. So she believed in her right to rule, but not necessarily in yours.
Then you have this. Her reign was this incredible time of progress and invention. We're talking steam engines, the telegraph, massive industrial power. It was a period of incredible wealth, national pride, and a feeling that Britain was on top of the world.
But that shiny surface hid a much darker reality. For so many people, it was an age of Dickensian poverty and horrific working conditions at home, and it was all built on the backs of a colonial empire that was often expanded through brutal, violent force.
But when you strip everything else away, you're left with one undeniable fact, and it's probably her single greatest achievement. She inherited a monarchy that was on life support, deeply unpopular and incredibly fragile. And when she died, it was one of the most stable and admired institutions in the entire world. She didn't just save the crown, she completely reinvented it for the modern era.
So that leaves us with the big question, right? How should we remember her? As the brilliant architect of the modern constitutional monarchy that we still see today, or is she ultimately the symbol of a vast, complex, and now long-vanished imperial age? The truth is, she's probably always going to be both.